This is Carl. Anyways, you were saying?
Yeah, so anyway, with the German election, it's kind of been a thing. Like, you always have a majority government, but they don't have a two-party system like the US and Canada.
Oh,
So what you've had is you've had like two dominant blocks in the politics. So you've had like the CSU CDU block, which are essentially Christian Democrats or a form of conservatives.
mm-hmm.
And then on the other hand, you have the Social Democrats that are kind of the liberals in this context, but Europe doesn't have liberals in the same way the U.S. and Canada does.
Well, Canada doesn't have it the same way the U.S. does either. Our liberals are like business-friendly East Coast centrists. It's almost regional. Like Toronto, Montreal is liberals, and then conservatives are the West Coast provinces, which is why they keep losing elections because there's not enough people in Saskatchewan to counter Quebec.
Fair enough. Anyway, so what happened last election? For the first time in like forever, none of the two big parties had enough votes to establish a government. So they had to
Oh,
do one together. So they've kind of been
coalitions. Those are
governing
always stable.
because Merkel was a lot more popular than her party was, and Germans tend to prefer stability. So they got a lot of extra votes just for having the chancellor, CDU, CSU, that is.
Mm-hmm.
But since she's retiring and the new guy is about as charming as a prostate exam, a lot of people reconsider their party allegiances. So the most likely coalition now is the one that they're calling traffic lights, which is the Social Democrats, the Free Democrats, and then the Green Party. And
Okay.
both the Free Democrats and the Green Party are very heavily pro weed, and the Social Democrats have turned as well. So it could be similar to the situation in Canada where Trudeau was like, okay, we just have to get Harper out of office. I don't give a shit. If I have to legalize weed, I'll legalize weed.
Yeah. Oh, he promised everything. That was the one thing he did deliver, and it took him 2 years to do it. But that's how Canadian. We don't ever vote for anybody. We always vote people out. ABL, ABC. That's the only elections we have. But whatever. So wait, you're telling me though. So for Germany, I was saying before, you guys have like hard pivots. So you went from giving your soldiers free meth to like Christian liberal conservative types, and now you're gonna go back to like giving soldiers free weed.
Well, it's
I
kind
don't know
of
about the
been,
other thing. Any final like policy decisions that are made after that, but I'm just
well,
saying
it's
patterns.
one of those weird characteristics because you have like, it's one of the things I think is kind of interesting about Europe is you have a lot of different but similar political systems.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the parliament representative democracy with like six or seven parties is just fucking hilarious. Because it's like rolling out a clown car.
I love that. I think I want more parties. The more the better. Everybody's mad at the PPC right now, our new far right party, which was just 2000s conservatives. But I'm like, yeah, roll those guys in. Get 7, 8, 9 parties. Nothing will get done. All right. We should get to the topic. This is going to be fun, though. You mind if we switch back to talking
No,
about
sure.
assholes and
Go,
the red
go.
pill? All right. Guys, welcome to Red Mornings. It's Carl here. It's me here. And we were talking about purity. Was it purity spirals? How did you word this? God damn it.
I
My
just
notes just
use
horrible today.
purity ideologies just
Yeah,
because I
red
had
pill
like the
Puritans. Dude,
because you
I
kind
love
of
that
brought
one.
up like the whole thing with shitting on trads and laughing at them and various other people, and my idea was like the kind of people who take the red pill as a cloak and they're really Puritans. And I realized Troy has been shitting on them for like 7 months straight at least.
Bless that man. That's that what do they call that? English grit. Never give up.
Yeah, like Troy went from I'm the guy who has a corporate job and I'm a street game guru to the guy who's like I'm a marketer and a personal brand guy who's also a day game guy to the guy I'm just gonna shit on trads for like 2.5 fucking years. Fuck them.
Dude, I love it. It's that brand switch because when I first got in, it was like, okay, so there's all this branding stuff. You got to learn how to do this, and you got to learn how to do this, and you get into it, and you start doing it, and maybe it works, and maybe it doesn't, and then after a while, you realize like I fucking hate all these people so bad. Like they're just annoying as shit. Like oh yeah, you missed it. So if you guys don't know, there was a guy tweeted today. Carl, I don't know if you saw this one yet. I got to read this to you. It's fucking hilarious. He was talking about his daughter. Where did it go? There it is. If I had a daughter and she brought home a guy that doesn't cheat, it means I failed my responsibility to teach her how to pick a real man. If you'd allow your daughter to be with a man that was going to be loyal to her, you're basically rooting for her relationship to fail. And I'm like, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of, you know how like the LGBT mafia shit, they're like, okay, so we need to have gay marriages, and then gay marriages come in. Okay, we need to be able to like sleep with underage people, like how you get that slippery slope. And like we've got our own now, our slippery slope. It's like, dude, if your daughter is getting with a guy who doesn't have a harem, then what the fuck's the point of living? And they're like, oh, for fuck's sakes. And he's not
But
a nobody account either. He's got like 3,000 people.
Yeah, I think those are kind of like the danger areas there because you're kind of taking it too far there, buddy. Like, dial it back to like the step before witch burnings.
But there's so many of them are nuts. And even now, like, and it's worse now because I've basically either been blocked or muted every fucking idiot smoking a cigar talking about alpha males or sigma males. So by the time one of them makes it to my timeline, it means like 15 of the guys in this chat here have found it so hilarious that they brought it to my attention. So I see like the worst of the worst. It's just ridiculous. I'm thinking of joining you where you just give like 4 tweets Friday when you're half cut and then just leave it alone for the rest of the week.
Well,
I don't
part
know
of
if it's
the
worth
reason
the book
behind that
sales.
is just part of it's just time wise, and the other part of just doing that is I just get too annoyed, man. Like it used to be like it was fun to get on there, and now I get on there and like I've spent hundreds of hours shitting on these people, and they're still here. What do I have to do?
And they're getting
I
worse.
have to find something more productive to do with my time.
Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, you're not doing this for a living. So I can see like here, you guys want to learn some like little 101 level marketing stuff that I learned? Part of the reason that that's good to do is so you establish an in group and an out group, because the best way to build customer loyalty is to, you know, those goddamn feminists are taking away all your guns and your gerbs. And now they're wrong and I'm good. So follow me and sign up to my newsletter. And that's like, yeah. I do it same as everybody too, Carl. But at the same time, I like let you guys know, like, all right, guys, just so you know, this is what we're doing, and it still fucking works. So I'm like, I don't get it.
And part like one of the things that got me the most in the beginning were kind of like because I'm guilty of having written 1 or 2 things about red flags through the years.
Yeah.
And most of the time, that was just like, to some extent, logic. Like, if the girl tells you that she cheated on her past boyfriend, she's probably going to cheat on you too.
Right.
If the girl spends like 3.5 hours on the first date trash talking her ex, everything she says about him, she's probably going to be saying about you after you piss her off. That type of shit.
Yeah, reasonable
But then
stuff.
this kept getting more and more detail oriented. You got like don't get into girls with tattoos, and then you got don't go with girls with piercings, and then if she has a pair of jeans that are ripped, don't she's a hoe. Then it's like if she's wearing Vans, she's obviously a slut. If she has Converses on, she likes to take it in the ass. And then it just got to a point where it got so minute and so ridiculous. So like the thing you were pointing out that was the red flag
Yeah.
would apply to every fucking girl in the world, more or less. And then the thing you were warning about would be like the 1% of girls, kind of like you're saying, okay, every girl in Converse is Sasha Grey, and it's just an exaggeration that's so out there. You're starting to wonder if someone's going to walk off stage and be like, mind freak.
Oh, I know. And that's the word. And there's like 2 parts to that is bad. Like, one, everybody has to one up everybody else. So you get to the point of absurdity where you lose focus on what the hell the point is. And then 2, it's like the Nigerian prince effect. The only guy who's going to believe that a girl wearing Vans sucks dick for a living is the guy who's never seen a girl who sucks dick for a living. So you're literally appealing to like the incel, black-pilled market of guys who can't, won't, and haven't ever been laid. And so then all you end up is, and then that's Purity Sproul is going to end up with an Elliot Rodger thing, and every single brand, like, fuck, I wish I could remember it. What was one of those school shooting type guys? And a whole bunch of the brands on Twitter were talking about it like 3 weeks before he went on a shooting. And all of a sudden they got real quiet about it. I was like, no. You guys were tough a minute ago. Let's hear it now. Tell me how he was alpha enough. Fucking asshole. I should have wrote that down, man. Ah, internet and its stupid forgetfulness.
No, it was the same thing though with other stuff. Like you had the same thing with the spiral, whereas like okay, people were getting progressively bigger beards in their profile pictures.
Oh yeah. And the stylings, there was the squared off ones, and then the pointy ones, and then the big bushman ones. Yeah, that was turning into like a whole like here, like check out my Pokemon collection. Oh yeah, check out my Pokemon collection. You're like, holy shit. It's a lot of Pokemon
Yeah,
there, you fucking alpha male.
yeah, and like AJ's sataning asshole thing too. Like that all started with the basics of yeah, you should lift weights and you probably should eat something at least once a week that doesn't come in a box.
Yeah, and go outside. Go outside, get some sun.
And that kind of and all it started with reasonable advice and then it was taken to like over 9,000 after a while there because I'm not sure if you remember like the vegans versus the carnivores.
I vaguely remember that. Beef moves so fast, it's hard to keep him straight.
Because
But
for
yeah,
a
it was.
while
Oh,
there,
yeah.
it was absolute fucking mayhem in my mentions between like two or three guys who were like red pill vegans
Yeah.
and a bunch of guys who'd just gone on the carnivore diet. So they were like posting pictures at each other. They were like, both sides were cherry picking studies left and right.
Oh, yeah. And dude, I wish I could remember it. There was this great article. It was some back when like the atheism thing was still big and on like Reddit, but it was a guy writing an article about how every MRA argument goes against a feminist. And it's the feminist argues that a phenomenon doesn't exist, while the MRA uses an extreme example that makes no sense. And then everybody just digs into their side. Nobody's right. Nothing gets solved, and it just creates like a cycle of content that you can milk for money. And I realized like stuff like that is how it totally got there. I don't think people want to
Yeah.
fix it. I think people lost sight of what the hell the point of at least the red pill was.
And it was
So,
kind of like the same thing with like, when we had that upstream schism thing.
oh, speaking of which, apparently Buddy's got court date coming up. Sad Petman.
Oh,
So I guess
that's
upstream
interesting.
Twitter, it's 3 years. Here's your accomplishment, sir. A record.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't end up with jail time because that would give upstream Twitter a whole new meaning.
Dropping the soap upstream. But it'll be good. He can join that Dino Bravo guy and Ajax in the I've been to prison. Don't fuck with me. I'll teach you how to be an alpha male.
Oh, I totally forgotten about that one.
Yeah.
I've been to jail, so I'm the real alpha. But what were you in jail for? Well, child molestation and pickpocketing.
I wish it wasn't even anything that cool. I think what was Ajax was like larceny under 1,000 or something. It's like shoplifting or something stupid like that. And Dino's one was like tax evasion. I'm like, dude, if you're gonna brag about going to prison, it better be like an assault or a bank robbery, or I killed the guy who raped my daughter, like that kind of shit. That'll get you cred, but you can't be like, yeah, what did you do? Ah, tax evasion. All right then,
That
let me
depends,
not
man.
mess with this guy.
Like I got a story that the other day, and it's kind of under wraps, but apparently some lawyer pilfered away like 100 million from his client escrow account.
God damn it, Rule
Because-
Zero, Dad.
Well, what happened was the guy apparently was running a side business of some kind that was
Right.
losing money for him, so he pilfered the money he needed from his client accounts and embezzled that. And I just thought when I saw that, I was like, okay, that was probably stupid, but at least if you're gonna be a thief, at least go for like fuck you money.
Yeah, 100 million, easy. None of this selling out for a spot on Tim Pool's show.
Well, it kind of reminds me of like this trend that was going on around TikTok. Like at first, I think the trend was like, how much money would it cost to hire you to kill someone?
Oh, it's a weird trend.
And then the next one that started going around like, would you suck a dick for $1 billion trend?
Dude, I'll suck a dick right now for half of that. I mean, hypothetically. Anyways, you were saying.
You know that's gonna get clipped, right?
Probably. Son of a bitch. The one time you admit to it. Well, I actually did a joke on that with Twitter, actually, where they were talking about LGBT parking spots, like handicap parking. And I always joked, I'm like, would you suck a dick for good parking? I never got, and nobody said no. Nobody said yes, but nobody said no. Just saying. Oh, look at this. Here, do you mind getting fluff for a sec, Carl? The
No, go
Reddish
ahead.
Dad bod. Thank you for the 15. Is that a currency or is that like Cylons or something? What is that?
It's currency, but I'm just not sure what fucking currency it is.
I've never seen that before. That's cool. Whatever that is. I don't even care the exchange rate. That's awesome. Sorry, but this channel is the only red pill one with actual substance. Other channels just small talk BS, so I think I'll stay. Go Ryan and Carl. Dude, we do our best. Although we have been just like bullshitting for this first little bit here. We're warming you guys up for some like hardcore red pilled content.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it. But I mean, whatever. It's at this point. What was it? We talked like a year ago. Like the whole point of this show. It was this one in Rule Zero. Guys were talking about how do I build a tribe and how do I banter with men. Like, could you guys do a show episode on that? And then I think it was you were like, dude, every fucking episode is that. Just watch what we're doing and just do this. Here's how you have a conversation with somebody for 2 hours and not make it awkward.
Yeah, well, one of them you can't even see one face.
Yeah. So there. You don't even need body language, guys. Just listen to tonality. Actually, does your...
Through a
I
voice
forgot
mod.
to look. Oh, it does. At least when you talk, it gets a little white circle around your name. I don't know why, but that always just seems important to me.
Oh yeah, the audio thing that kind of bounces up and down.
Yeah. We need to get some fancy options. We should talk to the StreamYard guys. I want to get like EQs on here. I was trying that on a couple of the solo episodes where you weren't here, where I put like a graphic EQ above me. I don't know why. It just has that like 80s synth Tron feel to it, and I was just a fan of it. Anyways, whatever.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, the Puritans. What were we saying?
I was just gonna digress to say like one of the main reasons why I'm kind of leaning towards getting a PS5 is just because of that old library of old nostalgic games I get to play.
Oh, they have an emulator on it with like the old PlayStation?
Yeah, I think so. There were talks of them having an emulator on it so you could play old PlayStation games on it.
Dude, that would be awesome.
It's like I bought like when the Nintendo Wii came out, I bought it and just played like the old Super Mario games on it for like a year.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Dude, I probably would do that. I mean, like I think I told you before where I soldered a micro ITX board onto like a Super Nintendo and then put a MAME emulator on there and the 9X one. So like the power button and the reset button worked. You could actually just plug in a Nintendo controller and it actually was soldered to the board properly. And then I would just play old Super Nintendo games on it. It was awesome.
Ooh, GTA Remastered. Yeah, that would be fun.
Oh, what was the first one? I think first one I played was GTA 2 back when it was still top down.
Oh, I just
they kinda
love
had, like, the
Vice
cheeky
City
violence.
Vice City is the best one, and just the detail they put into that Miami Vice thing, down to the fact that the airport of Vice City is called Escobar International Airport.
Okay, that is actually kind of funny. I gotta get back on that. I remember watching an episode of Miami Vice because I was bored one day, and I was like, "Holy crap!" This is kind of like the Knight Rider, Miami Vice, A-Team stuff. Those were pretty good shows back then. I'm surprised they don't make those anymore.
And like A-Team, I went back, and that was actually taken seriously as a show back then.
I don't think it was. I think they kind of had the tongue-in-cheek thing, like kind of like McHale's Navy vibe to it, but I could be wrong. I was like 6 when it came out, so for me, I just liked watching the guy with the mohawk beat people up. Yeah, get him. But that was back when the Incredible Hulk used to be on with Lou Ferrigno. And then every time he turned into the Hulk, I was like, I don't know, 3 years old or something. My mom was like, yeah, every time the Hulk came out, you'd scream and go running into the bedroom and close the door. I'm like, fair enough. But she's like, you watched it every week, so I didn't know. I was like... Yeah, there's a little history lesson for you guys. My relationship with the Incredible Hulk. But you know what? I'm bringing it back. Here's the point, guys. Don't take this stuff too seriously. And I know for a fact, I haven't even had a chance to read all of Carl's articles. You have too many goddamn essays. I've tried my best. I really have. It's harder to get through than like Rollo's books. But
Yeah, I can kind of buy that.
yeah, but I mean, there's tons of material out there, right? And it's the part that gets me is all these purity spirals are kind of guys who are lazy and don't want to make content. It wouldn't be hard. Just read everything. In fact, you could probably get through an entire, manosphere career just by reading all of Rollo's articles and then rewording them into your own words. And you could sound like the smartest guy on the planet. Because, I mean, that's what half this shit is anyway. Most of the time, you'll just take like a concept you've read off of Glover or Manuel Smith and you kind of put it into your own words and put it out there. And everybody's always worried, well, what happens when you run out of material? It's like, well, just reword everything and do it again. Guys are stubborn.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to reword the thing 18 different ways until they finally understand what the hell you're talking about, right?
Yeah, plus the fact that at some point it's going to get lost because it's going to be too much content, so it's going to be too hard for anyone to navigate. And I think we're kind of there now.
Oh, easily.
Because you have all these sites, you have all these podcasts, and there is no real like authority on, okay, where do I begin? That used to kind of be the red pill Reddit, but then that kind of turned into like a wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Don't get me started on that shit.
Which is really, it's kind of interesting because it's really the example of how someone can create something great and then fuck it up royally by sticking too closely to certain principles. Because everyone loves free speech and everyone loves like the room with no moderation in it. But I think when the certain head mod of that subreddit said, "Oh, we don't moderate," he had no idea how much the moderators were doing behind the scenes.
Yeah. I'm calling this one a Greek tragedy. That's essentially what it is, though. This is like, that was the scene where Heracles murdered his family, and then the next part is the seven tasks. Except for, what 7 manosphere tasks are there? I don't know. Probably nothing. But no, I agree. And I think when people took the idea of like free, unmoderated speech to an autistic degree, they forgot that you got to balance it with quality control. Like, free speech has nothing to do with kicking a guy out of a car forum that doesn't want to talk about cars. It's like, it's kind of what it's here for. If you're going to take a shit, go to the bathroom. Don't do it in the shower.
Or like, if you're going to sit in Discord all day bitching about your wife, don't be surprised when people ban you from a fucking Discord.
Dante, are you in here? Let me know. Did somebody get booted from your Discord for that? That would actually make me laugh.
But it just gets into, like, you can have free speech, but there has to be, like, a certain ground rules. And I think this is kind of what we're missing now, because when they talked about free speech, they all understood, okay, there's a certain requirements of us to have access to it. Like, you can't just scream cuck, 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 cuck in someone's face while they're trying to talk.
Well, yeah, you're assuming everybody's like adult, rational actors, right? Which obviously is not the case.
At least to a degree, that at least you know that, okay, there are certain ways you can just derail a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're constantly engaging in that, people are going to either start excluding you or recusing themselves.
Usually the latter. And quietly, too, so you never even know what's happening until it's too far gone.
It's kind of like the same reason if someone gets in my mentions with 9 followers, I'm like, fuck him and his 9 followers. I'm not going to spend 4 hours debating him.
I did that. Oh, I broke that rule and I regretted it, Carl. I haven't told you this. I have a confession to make to my Catholic confessional here, the Church of Carl. So I wrote a goofy tweet, something to the effect that there's no such thing as involuntary celibate. It's a choice. And then some MRA account, obviously a chick, so it was an important one, only like 2,000 followers or something, said she didn't believe me. And then she brought some crippled dude into the conversation. It's like, do you believe him? And he's like, people are going to say what they say. And it was the weirdest dynamic. Like, some of the guys here in the chat saw it. Like, imagine having a crippled guy on speed dial just so you can like flex on internet arguments. And I was like, holy shit, that's fucking brutal. And this guy, he needed validation so bad from this girl that he was doing it too. He's gladly jumping for her. And then the chick that runs Tim Pool's scheduling, I don't remember what her name is. Who remembers in the chat? Let me know, whatever. Rolo's been trying to get a hold of her for like a year now to get her to recognize him in the mentions and possibly get on Tim Pool.
Okay.
Okay, so all I had to do was put like incels aren't involuntary or some shit, and she's like, "What the fuck?" So now I got her attention. And I was like laughing at that when he goes, "Oh, you're gonna get on Tim Pool soon." I'm like, "Oh, dude, I don't think they're gonna want me. I'm
Well,
not
I
gonna
do
sit
think you
there
have
and
a
just
point,
agree
though.
with everything Tim says, so they don't want me on the show."
Well, you do have a point because, like, if you want to take it to like, there's always something that they're not like. Every guy can get laid if you pay for it, right?
Yeah,
And so they don't want to pay for it. They want like the genuine desire. They want the girl to actually want to fuck them. So at right there, you have an option. So it's not fully involuntary.
right.
And then if you're willing to like go to the bottom of the crab bucket and dig out whatever's at the bottom there, yeah, like I have a buddy, he usually says it's not a question of getting pussy, it's a question of how low are you willing to sink to get pussy.
Yeah. Well, and more than that too. Let's just. What do you do? Is it involuntary? Are you a victim of circumstance? Oh, there's nothing I can do. All right, so why are you here then? Why are you discussing it? Why are you arguing about it? The incel guy actually had an argument for that. He's like, well, I just want people to understand my problem, to listen and understand. I'm like, so you want validation? Oh, no, 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 no. I'm like, well, you just described validation. But it's funny when you put it into those stark terms, they don't get it. So I get it then. He just wants people to pat him on the head and say it's okay, it's not his fault. And I guarantee you, most guys. And he apparently had some degenerate bone disease where he's like Mr. Glass. And I'm going, remember when I was saying before about that argument where the MRAs will argue like a complete insane uh, example, and then feminists
Yeah.
agree it doesn't exist? And I thought this is exactly how you get into those arguments. Because then, if I was a feminist on this side, I'd be like, oh, that doesn't happen. You just need to pull it. And I'm like, no, you can admit that shit makes it really fucking hard. And you can also admit that just sitting there feeling sorry about yourself does not do any good. Like, what else are you going to do? You got 80, 90 years of life, even with a disease. Put some effort towards it. Because what the fuck else are you going to do with your life?
Well, also in most cases, like with most incels I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
because there used to be like this thing called true forced loneliness, I think it was called.
Oh, yeah. Rollo loves to talk about that. That's got to be old school.
Yeah, it's back in, it's at least, I think, 20 years old. But when you looked at it, a lot of the guys had kind of an extreme version of the soulmate myth.
Oh, that there's the one waiting for them.
Yeah, so they don't have to change anything about themselves. Girl should just show up and she has to be like a supermodel. She has to be this and that and just come over and fuck them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the male extreme fantasy where the burden of performance doesn't exist, which would be nice. I'm not kidding, but
Oh, of course, it'd
it's
be
not
great.
realistic.
So would
And
$1 trillion in my bank account. That would be great. It's not going to happen.
well, if you take it to like the logical extent, like if you're not willing to get like plastic surgery,
Mm-hmm.
then you haven't tried everything.
Yeah.
But like how many guys in the manosphere, the pickup guys, have fixed their teeth? Probably all of them. How many people of them wear contacts instead of glasses most of the time? Most of them.
Most of them.
How
Hell,
many of
John
them
even
wear
got lipo,
clothes?
got a lot of shit over that, and Rich is on TRT. It's like, fuck, man. If you
Yeah,
want to
right.
win, just win. Stop worrying about some random rules that you invented.
So at least work through like the what I don't think I called them the money steps in book two, but it's kind of close to it. And if you can pay someone to jump the line, just do it. Like if you need to pay to have your teeth fixed, pay to have your teeth fixed. If you need a new wardrobe and you have no clue what to buy, pay someone who does it for a living for a couple hours of their time and have them fix it. No idea what to do with your haircut? Ask the barber. They usually know what will look good on you, and so on.
Yeah.
And you have to go through all those motions. And I think glasses versus contact lenses is kind of on an individual level.
Because I've seen both
Because
work personally.
yeah, but you can also do like if you wear glasses, if you look young, they can make you look older, which can be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they can also, if you're kind of nerdy, they can make you look very geeky.
And
So
we can get
most
into
of the
like the
time,
style of glasses, which
yeah.
make a huge difference too, right?
Well, we're not talking sunglasses here. Correct
No,
to buy.
I'm sorry, I meant glasses. I misspoke.
Yeah, okay. So I would say that's a fair assessment. Like, just go and figure out what works for you. Like if you're an older guy and you're looking to go for younger girls, the contact lenses will probably be better unless you're trying to hit that daddy dynamic.
Mm-hmm. And then guys always ask too, which one works? And I love it because it's like there's a lot of questions where you and I can answer them pretty eloquently, not because we're fucking Supermen that know everything, but because you hang around a place, you've watched 100 guys try this stuff, and like, well, it tends to work if you do this. Like you said, you can get that daddy vibe because you've seen and heard of guys doing it. But there's some things you're like, try it out, do an A/B test. Do you think the glasses are going to work or not work? Well, go take a Saturday without glasses, go pick up girls. Go take a Saturday with glasses, go pick up girls. See which Saturday worked better for you, and then keep doing that one. Let us know.
Even what type of frame. So what I like to do is I like to go to, because you always find a place that will sell you like non glasses with
frames?
fake. Yeah, they can sell you prescription frames, but without like prescription glasses in them. So you can put your
I'm not too proud
contacts
to
in,
admit I've done that.
and you can like test out 10, 12 different looks of glasses. You can see which one works the best for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've done the same thing with sunglasses, and I've always gone back to aviators, and you tend to prefer Wayfarers, I think.
Well, aviators and Wayfarers, I flip back and forth. I've been on Wayfarers for a while though. I've been wearing the aviators lately. I think the only problem I have with them is they draw attention to my oversized head compared to the rest of my body. So I'm trying to go back to I'm trying to stick with Wayfarers, but it's hard.
So just figure out what works that way, and it's the same thing with everything. If you're not willing to do that effort, then you don't get to really complain that no one wants to fuck you.
Yeah. But so I think they don't get that either because I mean, if you're not having sex, obviously you don't know what it takes for other guys to have sex. And it may look like, Chad Incarnate is doing it effortlessly, but you forget Chad's had like 20 years playing on like a college football team or whatever accomplishments he does. And then everybody kind of like, what is it Rich says? It's girls don't pay attention to the race. They just fuck whoever's at the end line or whatever. And it seems like incels have that damaged woman brain where they're doing the same thing. Like they forget all of the shit that Chad did his whole life to become attractive, top tier, aloof. All they do is they look at him now, pick up a girl after half an hour and go, see, they're taking all the women. Fucking Pareto principle, man. And you're just like, Jesus Christ, you guys.
And that's where I kind of got with the purity thing, because that will always be attached to a couple of guys that used to kind of be tangential players in the 21 con sphere.
That old classic.
And fuck. Those were the guys who just came out with like their deep Christian beliefs front and fucking center. And Tanner's not included in that because, yeah, like Tanner's never included when we trash talk Christians, okay?
No. Well, Tanner's actually what I picture. Like if he was at a moneylender's thing in church, I could see him flipping tables. He wouldn't be there trying to, yeah, so I'm with you. I love how like Tanner and Ed Lattimore, when we talk about grifting marketers, Ed always gets the exception. And when we talk about like Christian assholes, Tanner always gets the exception. Those two guys are above reproach.
Oh, I can trash talk Ed a bit, but anyway, what I was getting at, it got to a point where like, you remember the Jordan Peterson argument? Like, being a monster, but being able to control it is better than being like, what did he say? Non-dangerous or whatever?
Yeah, rabbits aren't moral. Rabbits are useless. Don't be a rabbit. And then somebody's like, well, you got to be a lion then. All right, fair enough.
And it kind of got me back to the point where, have you ever had like a married friend who was like, how can I spice up my marriage? And like, well, flirt with other women. And they're like, no, I couldn't flirt with a checkout girl. That's cheating. You know, that type of guy?
You know what's funny? I've been very blessed in that I haven't had that guy. I've had the guy, it's like, dude, I just slept with this chick. I can't go home. I need you to talk me off the ledge. All right, come on in. Hang out. It's cool. I know she's a coworker. Just calm down. She's also married. She'll keep her mouth shut. Just don't act weird. Oh, okay, good. And then they go back to their lives. So I've been very blessed that I'm surrounded by enough Chad that I never have that nonsense, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, anyway, where I was going with it is, like, you got the same version, but as life coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was, you had these guys be like, no, but you need to be red pill, but you need to not be a hedonist ruining good quality women, right?
Oh, the beta male with an edge, with a side of alpha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, the problem with it was, if you've never done pickup and you've never slept with anyone, so you don't know. You're just basically assuming that if you open your mouth to a girl, she'll want to fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
And that just always seemed kind of strange because I can see, like, let's take a Roosh scenario where he didn't go insane, right?
I love fiction.
Like, if he'd done kind of that trad turn and he'd been like, yeah, I've slept with a lot of women. I've realized that didn't bring me happiness. So I've decided now to stop doing that and to get control over this and that and to try and make a monogamous relationship work. There would actually be some respect there because, you know, Roosh, if he wanted to, could go out and get laid.
Mm-hmm.
But for a guy who has never really proven that and doesn't have that, let's say, call it pedigree or whatever, to go out and be like, yeah, you shouldn't try to sleep with women. You should try and focus on finding the right girl in the right sundress with the right sun hat that can cook beige food. Then,
Yeah, it's a group delusion.
yeah, it is. It becomes this whole excuse not to hit on women. So it's like an elaborately constructed barrier in the way Rollo used the term in his article.
Oh yeah, the buffers or whatever. You know the funny part about that too? Like that's exactly how the purity spiral shit happens. Because like you, for example, you've been through the trenches. So when you say something, it's not that you believe it to be true. It's just that, yeah, it's worked the last 50 times, probably going to work the next 50. So there's like a certain confidence about it. And I could argue with you all day about like a Me Too accusation on a first date. You're just like, 50 times in 50 weeks, not once has it happened. I think you'll be fine. But you're not like adamant about it. You're not zealous. But if you're a Puritan who's making this shit up, it's basically an ideology to you. So you have to be like others have to join you in that delusion. Otherwise, there's a chance it could fall apart. And if it falls apart, that means you were wrong. And I don't know if it's an ego thing or if it's a marketing branding thing or if it's a monetary thing or maybe a combination of all three. But I think the worst thing the George Bruno types can have with their Sun Hat Brigade bullshit is like to accept the fact that what they're saying is complete bullshit and isn't useful at all. And that's why you have to get purity spirals and kick people out and then call Rollo a degenerate or call Carl. I don't even know what they called you. I don't think they can call you much because they don't know anything about you other than your name is not Carl. I think that's the one thing people can say for sure. He's not wearing a mask from The Purge, and his name is definitely not Carl.
Well, I have been wearing a mask for the last year and a half, though.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, I did
Oh,
have to wear a mask when I was in
yeah?
Jackland recently.
What's Jackland?
Oh,
Oh, Jack.
you get that?
Yeah, it took a second. I'm not good with my Dutch is rusty. What is it? German is rusty. Sorry about that, Jack. Ooh.
No, I think I think that's kind of interesting that like every kind of cult takes on that same, or any, like if you look at Stalin's purges, for instance, or you can
Mm-hmm.
look at like how they did it with the Khmer Rouge, you can look at like Scientology, how they have like periodical moments where they like kick a bunch of fucking people out.
Yeah. Like you can even look
And
at woke culture.
yeah,
Same thing.
like even there, it was like, are gay men really an oppressed group? I mean, after all, they are white and they are men. I'm
That
just waiting,
midlife
like,
crisis when you realize you're accepted like you've always wanted to be, and now you don't have anything to bitch about.
and kind of like the reason why I find it funny, it's just a matter of like, how detailed are you gonna get with this shit? Like, at least the Germans stopped at like the third level or something of the family
Uh huh.
with purebreds. At least they didn't go into like, well, but did you once drop the N bomb when you were drunk and in college?
Oh, dude, Canada's been doing that. We've lost of all of like our top brass in the military, we've lost like 5 recently. And it takes like 30 years to get up there. One of the vice admiral, I think it was, we lost him to a Me Too accusation because he mooned somebody when he was in Royal Military College in the 90s. Not even
Christ.
diddling, not even jerking off on the phone. He just mooned somebody when he got drunk one day. And I'm like, I still have friends that are in and they're terrified because, like, I remember what I did in my past, man. Like, all it's going to take is one guy and then we're done.
Yeah,
But
but
on
it's
a
the
lighter
same
note,
thing.
this Atem guy
And
is awesome.
it's And it's
Oh,
kind of
go.
like the same thing that you're having now with it's gotten to a point where I think people are just knowingly not saying anything because it's like a house of cards that if you just flick like one card a tiny bit, the entire thing is going to collapse.
Mm-hmm. God, that would be so nice. There's your real accelerationists. Make all the incels from the red pill out themselves.
That's kind of
I gotta.
funny with the super chat there.
Yeah, I was gonna
That's my
say this
favorite
is
super chat
hilarious.
ever.
Yeah. If you guys are just listening to this and not watching, it's I was listening to one of Carl's rants. Oh yeah, Atem, thank you for the $5 super chat. One of Carl's rants on speaker while on a beach in Casablanca. I quote, "This random guy walking by. That guy speaking is legendary." Yeah, I've still got those. They actually do pretty well on the channel still, even though they've been out for like a year and a half. If you guys don't know, there's two rants that Carl did. I almost want to call them like slam poetry because they do rhyme. They could tell you used to do
Some of them
battle rap.
do. But it was just the same thing with that was just a way of making it entertaining for myself for a bit. They were fun to do, but it's hard to generate that level of I wouldn't say anger because it's not anger, but
No, it's like what's that guy?
repulsion.
Lewis Black. Like it's cynicism, but making it
Repulsion.
entertaining.
I would
What are
say
you saying?
repulsion. It's repulsion. I just think it's you
Yeah,
need a certain level of just abject hate to make that work.
which is true. I am with you
I did
though. I
have
feel like
an
it's hard to hate much anymore.
well, I do them randomly because like you do have some moments like I ended up being seated next to like a huge fat dude who obviously didn't shower on the airplane.
Oh.
It's like you're sitting there and like fuck. I wish I had four masks on.
And what the hell is this? There's something about a cop in the UK. I don't know anything about this. I don't know if you know anything about it, Carl.
Oh, was that the guy with the undercover cops that were in like year-long relationships and had kids with their informants and shit?
I don't know.
Because I
Yeah.
can kind of agree that those guys should. Did you hear that story, Ryan?
No, I've
Like,
literally got zero
okay,
idea what he's talking
no,
about.
but I'm not sure if this is the story, but at least the one I kind of got into was like back in I think the 90s and early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
The police in the UK were doing these like extreme undercover things back in the UK.
Okay.
And what they this included, they were like they married girls and had kids with them and shit. And then when the missions were off, they just disappeared, just gone, like no word ever to the girls again.
Oh, that's dude. I want to be an undercover cop. I can get all the poon. That's like the ultimate sneaky fucker strategy. Like male feminist, stand aside. I
Oh
got an
yeah,
undercover
they
drug cop for you.
yeah, but like the cop murdered a girl using his cop status. Yeah, so cops murder girls. What else is new? I think they have like the highest. I think the only thing that is more dangerous job than being a cop is like being the cop's wife.
Yeah, I think people forget too because that, like you were saying before, with the whole Christian
Oh Christ, God.
conservative
Okay,
red pill
guys,
Jordan
guys.
Peterson thing. They think we're all pro cop, and I'm like, not
I
as
love
much.
dark humor as much as the next guy. When a guy uses his badge to kidnap and murder a girl, and some guy comments undercover game, it's hilarious, but it might send a wrong message. It would be
Whatever. It's just
hilarious
that
though.
kind of. That's the controversy that'll make this happen. Let's get a hate
It,
article from the New York Times. Get some of that PewDiePie clout.
it would be really hilarious though to do like a course on Gumroad for like undercover game and like detailing how do you get a fake police badge.
Oh my god, dude. Actually, I remember this too. There was like it didn't happen much. It was very like where a guy was talking about his. He was always worried about getting sperm jacked. Remember sperm jacking when that was like
Yeah, yeah.
the du jour fear. So what he would do, he's like, I'd always feed my girl breakfast or any girl I slept with breakfast the next day. And I guess his plan was feed her a lot of orange juice. And I can't remember why. There was some chemical reason for that. And he would like, he said, I would crush Plan B pills and put them in her eggs. To which like
Yeah,
the
that was me.
moderators kind of caught on really quickly. They're like, all right, first off, dude, that's a fucking felony. There is no like the best sexual strategy is one that doesn't get you pounded in the ass in prison. So yeah, no, this is not a red pill thing. And there was, but it started like so subtly. There was just some guy saying it was kind of underhanded, but not illegal. And then instantly more and more and more, and to the point where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna pull a Cosby on a bitch just so I don't get sperm jacked. And you're like, Holy fuck.
I do
This is
think
why
I
you
might
need
have
quality
started that.
control. What's that?
I think I may have started that.
I hope not, because that's like
Be-
that's fucking
because I,
horrific.
because like I was doing this joke thing, and some of that started off with a grain of truth. Like, if you're having a one night stand or like friends with benefits, don't throw
Yeah.
your condoms in her trash. Flush them.
Yeah.
Just like a security thing. Then I cracked a joke about like the best way to get out of my Me Too accusation is always take the girl back to your place and have your entire place wired and outfitted with cameras.
Oh, I remember that too back in the
Because
day.
like the penalty for illegally filming someone is a lot less than, potentially rape.
Yeah. I think that was the
And
argument to
just
make. It's better to do a misdemeanor than be accused of a felony.
yeah, exactly. And then at some point, I think during some show, I cracked the joke that, I just hate condoms, so I just crush Plan B into her orange juice in the morning.
Well, way to go, man, because a bunch of spurgs caught on to that and started building a strategy around it. Actually, I wonder if you guys may not know who we're talking about here. This is like some old insider shit, but Gay Luboil had a guy on his like I don't know, fucking Lions Den War Room of Excellence Telegram channel, who he had to kick out of the group for going to jail, but he never said why he went to jail. I wonder if it was for that. If so, how the hell has that guy got an audience anymore?
Well, the funniest thing, though, is like when I made that joke, I thought the idea of crushing Plan B pills into someone's orange juice was so outlandish that everyone would catch that it was a joke.
Oh yeah, you know Americans don't get satire though. Fuck, it could work. Although that's the thing. I don't know, man. Once Dark Triad became a thing, every asshole who like murdering puppies as a kid just latched on to it's like, oh good. So I can still throw cats in a Ziploc bag and be attractive? Thanks, man. And you're like, oh yeah, we need quality control is needed. Some guys just have no business being around this. You're just gonna fuck it
Yeah.
up for everybody. You have to go, sir.
Well, like, it's like I saw like this tattoo artist on like one of those YouTube tattoo shows
Mm-hmm.
who was like, I won't do your hands unless you have almost full sleeves. I won't do your neck unless you have like a big chest piece. And I won't do your face unless you have your neck. And kind of the logic behind that was if you're going to ink something that you can't hide, like it's a pretty big step to get tattoos on your hands, your neck, or your face, right? And
Oh, I get it.
especially
So
your
he's like, I
face,
want
you're
you to be
basic.
committed first.
Well, no, more like I want you to actually know what it entails and what consequences it will have for your life if you tattoo douchebag on your forehead.
No regrets.
And it's kind of the same thing because like Mike Cernovich wrote that How to Properly Choke a Bitch article a long time ago. I think it's probably 7, 8 years now.
Oh, okay.
And I
Was it
just
good?
always, I don't remember. It's been 7 or 8 years since I've read it. Anyway,
Oh.
and I always kind of pictured like giving that advice to some spurg and then having him come back on like, yeah, that choking thing really worked, man. She stopped struggling after I put the body scissors on and had her in the rear naked choke for a couple of minutes. And after that, I'm not going to give this advice because people will just fuck it up.
Yeah. Well, it was like guys who wanted to step out on their marriage and go get a side piece to moat their wife to plate. And there was always guys coming in like their first question was, okay, how do I get a mistress? And we're like, if you have to ask, you're not there yet. And if you are there, then you don't need to ask. So like the married red pill stance became like, it's just one of those things. You'll teach you the basics. And if you want to do that on your own, like you're not going to need help. You'll know how to figure it out. And I think I agree that there's like a limit. That's why I like red pill. Because there's always like, there's a defined kind of border around it. Teach you how to be more attractive and less unattractive. The details you sort out amongst yourselves.
Well,
Mostly
there's
because I
also
don't
like
trust you guys.
well, there's also like the new guys who are like, I just want to go hit on tens. And it's like, you're not ready for tens yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're not even ready for
Start
fours.
start with a nice three or something and work your way up.
Oh, dude, you're being too generous. Start with the old lady at the park. Have a 5-minute conversation with her, then start hitting on the fours. You know, guys are terrified. Like, oh, just the anxiety of approaching. How do I get past this? And some of the stories you hear where there's like, I think you did it yourself. I can't remember if it was the start of book 2. Oh yeah, it was where you were saying the reason you did it because How do you start from absolute zero and go from there to being attractive with options? And it's literally the guys like at -1. How do I hit on girls? I'm in a I've just moved to like Canada. I have a very thick foreign accent. I don't know how to dress. I don't know how to talk. I don't know how to have a conversation. I don't know how to approach people. I've got horrible anxiety. Where are the nines and tens? And you're like, all right, slow down. Slow down. First, let's talk about a haircut. Then let's talk about how to get rid of the accent. Then let's talk about how to have a conversation. Go ask somebody for the time. When you can ask somebody for the time, then you can approach a girl. It's and I know everybody kind of feels like it's embarrassing, but it's like, dude, there's no shame in remedial work. It turns out a lot of this basic shit is going to pay such dividends that you're better off asking 50 girls for the time than learning a course on how to pick up nines and tens, bro. At least in my opinion.
Well, it's also like kind of the same thing with working out, and I know I like to go back to that metaphor, but back when I started going back to the gym after COVID, I just started with just the bar.
Same.
And that's kind of embarrassing to stand there and just do the bar, but at the same time, it will prevent a couple of injuries compared to like, well, I used to deadlift like 350, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull that without having warmed up after not lifting for like 3.5 fucking years.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that. You're going to get injured your first week, and if you're not, you're going to be so sore you're going to have to take the next week and a half off because you can't walk anyway. At least with the bar, that's some movement, and you can build consistency, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of coaches did that wrong when they were like, okay, we have a new one. We're going to run him through fucking basic training. And the difference between like a gym membership and basic is if you leave your gym, the gym owner is happy because you're not trashing his equipment and you're still paying him. In basic, you're kind of locked in. It's either a do as they tell you, they don't have to care how much they hurt you as long as they don't kill you in a reckless way.
Yeah.
And as long as they do that, you can't leave because that counts as fucking desertion.
But you can quit. I know. I hate that. I hate it when everybody starts talking about it's just like basic. I'm like, I've been to basic training. What you're talking about is nothing like basic training. It's the same thing we did when we first got there. Everybody watched Full Metal Jacket before they went to basic, and they were expecting it. And when the instructors like didn't yell at you, when you still got up early, but then like the jog was just PT, wasn't firing rifles all day. You're like, oh, you're teaching me how to fold mattress covers. All right, well, that's fucking bullshit. Where's my Gomer Pyle moment? Where's my funky nickname? Ooh. All right, I got to take a quick pause. We're getting backed up on the super chats with both of them. First one, I actually want your thoughts on this one. Sam Whiskey with his Nietzsche paid for women and yet had time to hate on Schopenhauer. And then Anon Nona, thank you for 100 pesos. Carl, appreciation super chat. Thanks for coming on the show and giving us your time, man.
Oh, happy
See
to.
that? They love you, man. Oh,
Yeah,
and then again, Sam Whiskey. I'm sure Frederick the Great is rolling in his grave after Germany lost 2 world wars. But the Schopenhauer one. So I wanted to ask this. I'm actually kind of learning a little more about Schopenhauer now. What's this I hear that his fucking mom hated him? And like he really, like he kind of sounds like an incel, a very smart incel writing books.
Yeah, he is.
And he's like
More or
super
less.
insufferable in that, but he had some like decent takes. Is that like a fair assessment of him?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say though that I don't get into like the personal lives of philosophers a lot because I like to like most of them had fucked up lives. It's like same thing with Van Gogh, for instance. Like, okay, guy is probably if not the best, at least in like the top 3 painters of all time.
Right.
But dude had a seriously fucked up life. Like, he cut his ear off because a girl didn't want him. Like, even our incels don't do that shit.
Yeah. Well, that's why I kind of like the personal life part. It kind of gives you better understanding. Like, I always like comparing him to like one of his buddies, Gauguin. And nobody remembers Gauguin. They all remember, the fucking ear cut off.
Wasn't he the guy who wasn't he the guy who would like to abuse kids on an island somewhere?
Yeah. Moved to was it Fiji or the French Polynesians or something like that and just slept with 14-year-olds for his painting career. He went and I can't think of who the example is. Yeah, he just made his own Epstein Island and made a giant, art thing from it. And it's like, do you want to be Gauguin or do you want to be Van Gogh?
But it's kind of interesting if you start looking through history, like people who did amazing things during their life, they tend to fall in like the camps of extremes.
Mm-hmm.
So you had like Newton, who probably died a virgin. Schopenhauer, I don't remember. You had Nietzsche, who paid for it. And then you had like Foucault and Derrida and the guys from France who were just basically slaying fucking Poon.
Oh yeah. Picasso, absolute
Yeah.
slayed it. The James Bond of the art world. He was, I think, in his 70s, still sleeping with like 18-year-olds and stuff like that. If I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
It's like Gauguin was the ultimate big Tao.
Go my own way. Middle of nowhere. Who are some of the other ones? The Surrealists, they were always fun because they just did acid all day and then like, I'm going to paint the Roman Colosseum. And then they do a bunch of acid and it's got Hitler taking a shit on an elephant with giant clock legs. And you're like, all right, fair enough. But that's the other
Yeah, I
reason I
kind of
like that
enjoy.
tue. Sorry, I was going to,
Kind
one
of
last
enjoy
thing.
the.
What
Yeah,
do you
yeah, go.
enjoy? Oh, I was going to
No,
say
go.
the Dadaists. Like, I remember it was, again, it's the Gay Lupoil thing. I hate bringing them up, but it was a good point where they're talking about the West is fucked and they had all that despondent, memes will make it all better. The West is falling, blah, blah, blah. Islam was right. And I look back to the Dadaists. That's exactly what they were doing. Even the art is similar. That same like lost object art look that like throws away anything. Just throw Pepe in front of it and it looks exactly the same as like Max Ernst would paint in 1920. And that's, for those guys, it was because the First World War had everybody dying from mustard gas. So naturally, everybody was a little despondent thinking the world is going to end because they just watched 500 guys die for breathing. Meanwhile, now it's like, I can't find a girlfriend and I can't buy a house in this real estate market. And they're having that same level of despondency as the mustard gas victims. And I'm just like, for fuck's sakes, guys. Like, we are soft. Even our despondent people are soft.
Yeah, but I always thought the Matrix kind of hit it on the nose there, that we don't want to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm pretty sure, let's say we just turn this world into a Garden of Eden,
Right.
where we have plenty, everyone is running around naked, fucking like rabbits. How long would it take for some guy to start complaining about there not being Xboxes?
Dude, I am with you.
Like, and
100%.
there's no KFC in the Garden of Eden.
If there is a KFC, well, there's no Popeyes. Well, if there's a Popeyes and a KFC, well, there's no Chick-fil-A. They have all that stuff. Well, there's too much chicken here. Yeah, people are just miserable. I'm actually amazed how miserable people seem to want to be. And I don't understand. I'm sure you might know, but I'm sure there's an underlying thing about it. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I think people have had not too little hardship in their life. Like, I think you need to have some fucked up shit happen in your childhood. So when you get older, you can just appreciate a nice, boring, not fucked up life.
Well, it's kind of like, has anyone, imagine, like, I'm sure you've had roommates over the years, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, like, when you get one of those roommates who've never lived on their own before,
Mm-hmm.
and you've lived on your own for a couple of years or even longer,
Right.
that dynamic there where they're like a completely helpless fawn, and it's like, oh, I don't know how to clean my clothes. I'm gonna have to, get my mom to come over to do the dishes, that type of shit.
We actually had
We're
that
like,
roommate, 6 of us in this one place, and the one guy didn't know anything. We were basically teaching him like we were his mom. This is how you do laundry. We had to teach, and he fucked it up the first time too. He used dish soap. It says dishwashing on it. So I put it in the dishwasher. Whole fucking floor is just soap and the dishwasher's fucked. We're like, God damn it. Got his head caught in the freezer once. That was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
how do you get your head caught in a freezer?
Funny you should ask. We were just goofing around playing like cards or something like that. And he liked being dramatic because he was like a film student. And so he freaks out and he does the joke where he sticks his head in the top down freezer and like bangs the door on his head, comedic humor thing. But he had like this Christian necklace and it got caught in a little hook at the bottom of the freezer. And so when he tried to lift his head up, it wouldn't go. And he was holding the freezer door. So he starts to panic. So he's pushing the door down with his hand because he's panicking so much and trying to lift his head up. And the necklace is holding him in place. And we just started laughing that he was so inept that like he didn't know he was making his own like prison until finally we're like, all right, we had to get him to let go, lean down, pull your thing out there, and just laughed at how fast he panicked. He probably would have killed himself if we weren't there. froze himself to death in a fucking depth freezer.
Well, like imagine that ineptitude on other areas of life.
Oh, I don't
And
have
I
to
think
imagine it. We see it
and
every goddamn day.
and I think that's where a lot of it comes from. And I think a lot of guys are trying to find their way around it and roll as a good one. Like every guy has game. It's just a matter of how effective it is.
Yeah.
And I think the core problem is people get caught at one age and they just never really mature beyond that age. Just like the girls were saying, like the first girl you sleep with will kind of imprint on you forever.
Mm-hmm. Delayed adolescence.
And I think it's the
Bros
same
versus
thing that's kind of
homes.
stuck there, but I think people kind of stop at different points. I think people who get married early, let's say they marry their high school sweetheart,
Mm-hmm.
their flirting game, so to speak, never matures beyond that high school thing. So you kind of see that with like guys who were really successful in high school and have struggled ever since. It's because they just got by on having such a high level of social proof in that context that they
Yeah.
never actually had to learn game.
Well, technically, if you're in high school with social proof, you didn't have to learn social proof either. It's like I
No,
learned how to
it's
do my engineering by building Lego sculptures. The kids loved it. But I'm with you. I totally agree. And that's the funniest thing because those are the ones that are always the most confident about it. Not just them, but their wives too. Which is funny though. I think from a girl perspective, I locked down a man when I was like 18 is probably a flex. But then that's the problem is that they don't know how they did it. They just got lucky. Or the stars aligned, or they learned the right set of skills at the right time, but they don't know how they learned it. They're like naturals. Yet natural beta males.
Yeah, but it's kind of like with the same thing I've been noticing with like the guys who are doing the all the money making schemes now with like I
Yeah.
can teach you how to make that's usually their first business. They just kind of got lucky with it
Yeah.
and now they're milking it.
And it's marketing. And that's the thing too. They didn't like the skill isn't the skill. Marketing the skill is the skill. So there's no skill behind it. And I know this because what was it? Cernovich, he talks about it, and John talks about it all the time too. It's that stupid book. It's some book about how to market better. It's popular. All these guys read it. That's why all the grifts all look the same because they're all reading the same guy's like how to grift manual,
Fair
which
enough.
is I just can't remember the guy's name. I think that's like I Operation Bucket on Head. If somebody's telling me I got to put that bucket on my head right now, I look who's saying it with the bucket on their head, and if I don't want to be them, I'm not going to bother. Damn it, Rolla would know too. I should ask him. I'll tweet it out later if you guys remember. But then yeah, it makes sense if you know what you're doing. Like you, sexual strategy, go and run and pick up in your 30s. That shit you know. You've done it. You've got your skill set. You can articulate why it works and how it works and things others can do to make it work for them as well. So you have the skill, you have the teaching skill, you have the doing skill, and then you add the marketing skill to that, and then you have like you would have a genuine product. But then that's the problem is if you haven't developed those skills, a lot of guys maybe they know pickup, but they don't know how to articulate it. They're just naturals. That's like the what's that guy's name? Della Runa, the guy who did the Super Seducer game.
Yeah.
Turns out, by the way, he had a notch count of 2 before he made that game. And it totally shows. I tried doing a stream on it. I played it and I got through like a third of it and I'm just like, fuck this guy. And I turned it off. Like he started his approach by apologizing. Like, what the fuck?
Oof.
Sorry, girls. I'm like, why
Just
would you say sorry, girls as your opening line in a bar? Like, really?
kind of reminds me of this I this guy scrolled by on TikTok and
Yeah.
some guy put out a video and it's like just a guy who's got this girl wrapped around his fingers, and the text is just, "Look at this 16-year-old who just pulled the Hooters waitress."
Oh, that makes me laugh. Oh, here's a good one
I
too.
do.
Anon.
I just want to add one little thing before we do the super chat because I think
Please
that
do.
16-year-old is a good example of how you're supposed to learn game because technically that age between like when all your hormones are crazy and we're telling you that yeah we're not going to hold you criminally responsible for shit you do right now because we know you're insane,
Mm-hmm.
that's the period where you're supposed to get the drinks thrown in your face and where you're supposed to have uncalibrated negs going left and right and where you do all that shit. You're not supposed to do it in your 20s, and that's why it feels awkward as fuck when people are starting with like a 14-year-old level a game, and they're trying to use game techniques that need to be calibrated by 5, 6 years experience.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And that's the reason why it has to be like autistically described with that level of detail, because that just is appealing to an older mind that's missing an early skill. It's like teaching a guy how to walk again after losing his legs.
Well, it kind of reminds me of a friend of mine. He's an engineer by trade
Okay.
now, but he started off as an electrician.
Right.
And then he worked as an electrician for about 10 years, and then he decided, hey, I want to study electrical engineering. So I went back to school. And his biggest problem was because he'd worked with as an electrician on a fairly high level, he knew a lot of the stuff, how to do it, but he had problems reconciling the theory with the practice until he had an older guy show him like, okay, listen, I've done the same thing. Here is kind of how you need to balance those two against each other. Because like, nothing's worse than an engineer who doesn't have any practical experience.
There was a mod of the Red Pill who was one of those guys, and he's like, yeah, they never made it. He had to teach them how to go talk to the guys on the floor about why things are doing what they're supposed to do. It always made me laugh.
Okay, so yeah, maturing is kind of a container word, but what I tend to think of when I think of with maturity is granularity.
Ooh.
In that, as you grow older, you learn to see things in more detail and you have more experience that nuance things out.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see things, let's say, from simple things to like being able to taste other tastes. Then, like when you're a kid, you like sweet and salty, but you don't like bitter or usually not sour. But as you get older, you kind of start to like those flavors because your palate is getting more mature. And it's the same thing with like flirting when you're 14 and flirting when you're 44 is the same fucking thing. It's just a lot more nuance added to it.
So you think of maturity more as like a refinement process.
Yeah, that plus you get rid of a lot of like the hard edges. Like it's really easy to see the difference between like a 25-year-old man and a 35-year-old man because usually the 35-year-old should be a lot less hot-headed,
Mm-hmm.
a lot more risk averse in a sense, and a lot more controlled in his actions.
Well, yeah, I think it's more knowledgeable about the risk as opposed to being risk averse. I think they just have a better
Yeah, that's the
appreciation.
better one.
Yeah. But I'm with you. Like for me, with the maturing, I agree because most people think of maturing as like a spectrum. You're 0% mature when you're born, and then at age, I don't know, 50 or whatever, you're 100% mature. And they don't ascribe to that. I treat maturity the same way I treat getting better at something. It's like any skill. It just happens. Maturity describes social savviness, and they use the word mature for that. When if it was any other skill, they would just call it mastery. But you can't call it like mastery in talking to people because that would sound fucking weird.
And I also think maturity kind of comes into it's not a thing in and of itself. It's a description of something you observe.
Mm. We're talking like the see the black hole because of its effects kind of thing here then.
Well, it's kind of like how the United States Supreme Court defined porn. I don't have a definition for it, but I know it when I see it.
The most hand wavy legal decision ever. Yeah. Fair enough, sir.
Yeah, well, the argument there being that if I see a guy who, let's say, screams at his girlfriend in public,
Right?
I don't view that as a sign of maturity.
Oh, I agree. But that's the question. Like, could you articulate why?
No, it's the same thing like a guy who has his girl is throwing a tantrum in public and he doesn't react to it. Do you think of that as being mature or not mature?
Oh, yeah, it's
Because
obviously
it's
not
all,
mature.
but there's an action between those two, between just sitting there and taking it and escalating.
And I think that's an experience thing. Same as I said, mastering a skill. Like, I know if I act aggressive to a girl in public, I already know every guy and girl within earshot is going to take her side and it can have consequences for me. So I know that's not a good approach. I know just sitting there getting berated, nobody's coming to help me. I lose a bunch of dignity and I just don't want it. So yeah, there's solutions around that. Now we could argue whether it's because out of experience you've yelled before, got your ass kicked, so you don't do it anymore. You've had her just beat you in front of everybody, but then she doesn't fuck you anymore, so you know that. Or you just learned it by watching other people. But I agree, it's just I understand the consequences my actions have in public, for better or for worse, and then I can make a conscious decision how I want to act based on that knowledge. And then the more accurate the knowledge is, the better decisions I make.
Yeah,
And then I would consider that
once
holistically what you would think of when people talk about maturity.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult thing to describe. Is like most of the things we deal with here are kind of difficult to describe, like you know it when you see them.
Yeah. Frame's a great example of that too.
Yeah, it's one frame I think is possibly the hardest thing to explain in like a way that doesn't require at least a couple pages.
I can guarantee you it takes at least 7,000 words to even get the basics of the point across. And even then it ends off with, but when you see it, it makes sense. When you have it, it'll all click. That's like the part I'm struggling with the most on book 2 right now, is trying to articulate frame. And it's not just me. I've been like looking at 5 or 6 other guys who have done like lengthy pieces on trying to describe frame, and it's like we're no further along than when we started.
No, and I think it's just because it's one of those things that it's the same thing with. I'm trying to find a good example, but if you think about how rich people versus really rich people, how do you discern those two?
Oh, so now we're talking about like the subtle social cues.
Yeah.
Like I always use the example of like rich people don't put spinners on their cars. Poor people who want to act rich do. Then super rich people don't even drive. So when they talk about cars, it's like a luxury thing. Like I don't even drive, so somebody else drives me. Or what was it, Zuckerberg, where he has like a $30,000 watch, but he's wearing a t-shirt and jeans from Walmart. Meanwhile, a rich guy would wear a suit and a tie. Very fancy one, costs like $3,000. Well, that's not entirely true either. Adam says like rich people don't waste time. I don't know, man. I think when what's his face there, Tesla Boy, went on Saturday Night Live playing Wario, pretty much wasting his time.
Yeah, I'm also kind of thinking that a lot of it is more marketing and myth than it is reality. Because I remember an interview I saw with a former business acquaintance
Yeah,
where he's trying to build that larger than life persona. So he's like, yeah, I'm a CEO of a massive company. I'm only like 35. I work 80, 90-hour weeks and I'm training for a triathlon. And I'm like, dude, I've worked with you. You work 20-hour weeks. Like you
that goes
show
along
up an
with
hour
it.
late coming from the gym, then you leave an hour early because you have to go see your bike guy, and then you show up late the next day because you had to go see a massage therapist, and so on and so on.
That's like the entrepreneur, how they always have to have the story where they were raised on like toast sandwiches. They built themselves up from nothing. Oh, didn't your dad loan you $10 million in VC startup? Yeah, but that doesn't count. Still did bootstraps. I don't know why. And is that a marketing thing, or is that a way to like appease their ego for them to convince themselves that they earned it, so they don't turn into one of those champagne socialist types that feel guilty, so they want to just be a communist?
Well,
I
I
never
think it
understood.
goes back to like that fantastic article by Hartis, The Unbearable Triteness of Hating.
I love that article. It's such a good one,
Because
and it still pays
I think a lot
dividends.
of it is just about your, like with Trump, I think the best way to exemplify that, because Trump is his brand,
Yeah,
100%. And
absolutely.
a lot of celebrities have the same thing. It's why it was a scandal back when Hacksaw and the Iron Sheik were caught doing cocaine on the freeway together when they were supposed to be beefing. That's why people get pissed off. Like people would not get pissed off. Weren't shocked when Bill Hicks and George Carlin were using dirty swear words, but when Bob Saget, who was known by most people for being like the lame dad on Full House, started doing the Aristocrats, people were like, "What the fuck?"
I remember that like kids would like leave the set when they were filming it live because they're like, and they had to ask Bob like, "Could you stop swearing on set, please? Like, we need you to be the
And it
Full
was
House
like,
guy."
And I remember I watched the roast of Bob Saget, and like I was like, this is going to be like the lamest show ever. And like first joke out is a joke about Bob fucking the Olsen twins in the dressing room.
I like that one. Yeah, I didn't know any of this stuff about Bob either. I always thought he was a Full House guy. I didn't find out for like a decade afterwards when he was doing that Dave Chappelle film where he had that line about sucking dick for coke. And for me, I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, oh, I get it. They changed this whole thing. And like, no, that's how he always was. I'm like, oh, okay, fair enough.
And that's kind of like where I'm with Elon too, because like most of his net worth is based on people having confidence in his persona and the
Yep.
image he's built of himself. It's the same thing as Warren Buffett, who likes to come off as like, yeah, I'm this cozy grandma from Omaha who loves McDonald's and Cherry Coke.
Mm-hmm.
And he's probably one of the most ruthless businessmen of at least like the last 300 years.
This I've heard of too. Or Michael Jordan, another great example. He was like the milk toast, like Jesus figure, put a poster on your wall. But apparently, like, if you hear the stories coming out of him when people like, hey, can you sign my shoes? He's dropping like N bombs on little fucking kids that are his fans. I ain't
Yeah,
signing your damn shoes. Bam.
like
I'm
the
like,
story about like when they lost, he would deny his teammates food.
what the hell? I didn't even hear about that one.
Yeah, that was. I'm not sure if it's true, but it's like whenever they lost, it'd be like, yeah, no one gets to eat meat tonight. Everyone is just eating salad.
Scottie Pippen. God damn it, again? Fuck. Rodman probably, fuck yourself. I'm going to North Korea. I'm out of here.
And I think it's a lot. That has a lot to do with it. It's like their persona is such a large part of what they're selling and what gives investors confidence or movie producers confidence. Like if it came out that who's like the guy who plays Superman now or played Superman, what's his
Oh,
face?
Cavill?
The British, yeah, Cavill.
Yeah.
Let's say it came out like, okay, Cavill's doing coke and doing gangbangs. How long do you think he'd be playing Superman?
That's a good question because they found out he was playing World of Warcraft incessantly and he didn't lose the part.
No, but I think that's because that kind of plays into like the wholesome
Ah, if you find
type
he's not
of thing.
wholesome.
So it's kind of like if you've kind of prepped your fans for them being for you being like no one bats an eye when that the Motley Crue book, The Dirt, came out and you find out, oh yeah, we did drugs and we fucked a homeless girl and stole her dress, and it was like, yeah, I can see that happening. This was Motley Crue in the fucking 80s.
So setting and meeting expectations. Although it's
Yeah,
the
it's just
lies about it. You notice that?
yeah, but that's the problem. Like the lies, like if you're open about it, people are kind of used to it, so no one reacts to it. But if you keep it a secret and it's very different from how you portrayed yourself, then people are going to respond very negatively to it because
But
you
that's the
tricked them.
thing. That's what makes me wonder, like, why do people do it? Like, I mean, you've all heard the thing about politics where you better go to Epstein Island so they have something over you. That way you can get to the echelons of power. Like, there's a measure of control. I'm like, is that it? Or is it just that everybody is embarrassed about their life, so instead of just living honestly, they have to live the lie? Like, is that a skill set you need to achieve like the Rock levels of fame, or what? Or is it just like nobody actually has to do it, but we've all been so used to it, we just do it anyway? I don't
Or it could be,
understand.
or it could just be as simple as it's the easier way. It's the path of least resistance because we do tend to go for that if it's offered. It's like all
But
these
people want to
guys
get
in there,
lied to
like,
then,
well, take all these guys in like their 40s and 50s who go and grab a wife in Thailand or Philippines or something.
right?
Like most of those guys, they could have lost weight, they could have dieted, they could have gotten their teeth fixed, but they chose another option. It's the same thing I've
Simpler,
always
it's
had with
easier.
like why I tend to only like kid with MGTOW and those guys with love. It's that okay, it's fair enough if you made that choice that okay, women isn't for me. I'm just gonna stick here and I'm gonna focus on my life and do what I think is fun. Okay, that's great as long as what you think is fun isn't talking about it online.
That's what I'm with too. Same thing. I shit talk MGTOWs a lot for clout. It's not because I think the MGTOW part is bad. I'm just like, if you're gonna say you're going your own way, just go. Because your own way doesn't involve saying the juice isn't worth the squeeze or coming out with TikTok compilations of every slut on TikTok. Because We'll be here all fucking day if that's the case.
Or like the people are like, yeah, I'm quitting Twitter. Did you hear me, people? I'm quitting Twitter.
They've never quit. Never in the history of ever has anybody done that and actually quit. That's what gets me. Or why I'm leaving the manosphere. I love those videos. This is why I'm leaving the manosphere. And then you go to manosphere.tv and their videos are the first thing on there. You're like, are you though?
Will say though, one of my favorites are the ones that with all the people are like, yeah, we're getting canceled. We're getting canceled. Yes,
Oh.
and while we're interviewing you on the most watched TV show in the nation, what else do you have to say?
Dude, I laugh. Like, if you guys don't know in the chat, the red pilled subreddit and the married red pill subreddit could not get along. They fucking egos clashing, heads butting. I was like one of the few people that got along with everybody, but it was always funny. I think Wine More Please and Red Pill School used to be at each other's throats all the time. He's like, you have been bitching about how like cancel culture is coming for you guys for the last 7 years, yet here you are. So like, I don't want to hear that shit. But it's just funny, yeah, and it's like observably untrue, but everybody buys it.
Well, don't you think that's part of what creates the like in-group personality though?
Oh,
Like the idea that
absolutely.
someone's coming for you? Because I mean, that was a big thing with Waco and that shit.
But that was the big reason why guys like Whisper or myself bring up the kayfabe and you. It's like stop buying your own mark, right? And we use wrestling references, sure, but I mean that's the same thing. When these narratives are around, are they observably true or not? And if they're not true, it's some kind of mass delusion as a way of creating group cohesion, which is fine as long as the group is serving your interests. In most cases, they're not. Like the gay lube oil guy and his army, mass delusion, but they're not serving their interests; they're serving his interests. And that's like one of the least red pill things you could do is just start dick riding another dude because he's filling your head with nonsense. That's no different than a girl telling you just to be yourself and the right girl will come around. But at least that's a chick. At least you're in the right game. But if you're simping for a dude, it's like, have you not been paying attention at all? You know?
Well, I do think that's kind of why a lot of those guys default to gaming, though, because I think men have a built-in need for accomplishment,
Oh, do we ever?
and gaming gives you that, but it does so in a very, let's say, transparent way.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have the ladder, you can always see how you're doing, you can see what's working, you get feedback if you're doing something wrong, and that's just easier than dealing with the game that is humans that doesn't have that same kind of predictability to it. Because like if you've ever approached, let's say, a corporate career the way it was a game, then you think, okay, I just have to grind more than everyone else, put more work in and do better. But
I
then
did
you
that.
just
That
become
sucks.
then you just become some useful idiot for the guy who's gonna take all your ideas and get the credit for them.
Yeah. I've had my boss flat out say that. This girl I worked with, hardcore feminist type, former reservist, didn't know the equipment, didn't know her job. I knew it inside and out. I was great leader among men, all that shit. She got promoted ahead of me. I'm like, why? Well, she shouldn't have to earn it twice. In reality, there was just pressure from command. We want more women in charge. So I'm like, why the hell am I putting all this effort in? They actually promoted me ahead of the guy that they arrested 2 years later for having child porn. I'm like, how do you promote that guy ahead of me? He
Well,
was
they probably
bitching
didn't
about it.
know
He's like,
about the
I got
child
promoted
porn.
6 days early. I'm like, I was 6 months late, you asshole. Oh yeah, it was a fun deployment. Because it sucks while they're doing that investigation, and nothing for a sailor when you're deployed bothers you more than not going to sleep. You only get like 4 to 6 hours of sleep a day anyway. And when the cops are like, yeah, you can't go into your mess. So I have to sleep out in like the main mess where stokers are getting drunk watching episodes of Rome or Master and Commander for the 500th time, trying to sleep through that shit. Fuck that. Anyways, it's totally off topic. You want to deal with this on a super chat here?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so I made a post about Frame on Ask Married Red Pill. You commented on that as well. I said mental models are made of motivations, forces to act on motivations and assumptions. Do you agree? No. Mental models, all a mental model is like we've been talking about these, the stories you tell yourself. That's all a mental model is a narrative structure. And you use that to base your decisions on. And if it's a good mental model, your decisions are better. If it's a bad mental model, you end up simping for some dude on the red pill. But they're never true. It's like economics. All models are wrong, some are useful. It's the same thing. Just humans aren't designed for objective truth. It's just the way it is. That's my thought on it.
Uh,
What do you think, Carl?
Yeah, I agree. I think we're at the point where we can almost model humans. Like for those of you who've seen some of the newest things they're doing with AI,
Hmm.
they've developed AI that can write text that people think is human.
Oh, I heard they're doing like sports articles with AIs now.
And it's just going to be a matter of time before AIs are able to predict things like how many people are going to go to a hospital to how a war is going to play out. It's just a matter of time. And like I've been playing around with smart home shit,
Hmm.
and just the level of automation you can hit in your own house is kind of fun. Yeah, you're giving some company a lot of data about you, but goddamn if it isn't useful.
I'm still going old school. Like everything is on its own Wi-Fi connection. Like these lights are technically Wi-Fi, but I don't want it hooked up to an Alexa. And I'm such a luddite. I'm like, I need to attach it to the Bluetooth on my phone. I ain't having Alexa do it for me. I don't want voice commands. There we go.
Anyway,
There,
to
you
get
ain't
back
getting
on
my data.
point with it.
What's that?
Well, to get kind of back to the point though, a mental model is, I would say it's just an idea, a hypothesis about how the world works
Mm-hmm.
in a specific area that you test whenever you act in that area. Because you have the idea, if I do this, what will be the outcome? And the better your mental model is at generating the outcomes you want or predicting the outcomes you expect,
Yeah.
the more useful it is.
And you can tell our bodies are designed for it. That's where the neuroplasticity comes in. Like if you guys don't know, that's the whole point of getting zeroed out. You know, the Rolos thing where your wife divorces you, takes the kids, you find out everything you thought about the world was wrong. Your brain has just hit a fight or flight response to like an errant mental model. It didn't work because and until it gets to that fight or flight response where it's like it perceives it as an actual danger, then it's not going to change the way it thinks about things. That's why I say don't red pill your friends, because your brain is actively fighting it, because cognitively it takes less energy to believe a model that works well enough than it does to min max it.
Well,
But once the
it's,
guy's zeroed out, then you get the neuroplasticity, your brain starts to be open to new things, and that's when you can teach somebody a better working mental model until it settles in.
well, you also have to go on to our topic about the Puritans. You also have to keep in mind that mental models based in morality or fear, you're never going to be able to dispel those with facts.
Oh, 100% never. The
Like,
brain literally isn't wired to be persuaded that way.
so it's kind of hilarious about it with like you can try and talk someone out of something they were taught as a child. And that's why I've always joked that if I have a kid, I'm going to teach them the wrong lyrics to whatever national anthem is in the country where I'm living at the time. Just to see how hard they fight when they hit like the first grade and someone points out, hey, that's the wrong lyrics.
At least it's better than what most guys are doing to fuck up their kids. They're treating their kids as mulligans. Dad fucked up raising me. He pissed me off so bad. I'm going to teach him a lesson. I'm going to raise this guy as the way I wanted him to raise me. And then wonder why
Yeah.
the kid like rebels against all of that when he hits 13.
Well, my theory is that all parents are supposed to fuck up their kids,
Okay.
just in new, innovative ways.
So I always thought I was supposed to leave them alone. Just keep them fed and don't put cigarettes out on them. They'll figure it out on
Yeah,
their own.
that's kind of like because that's been the philosophy of a lot of like if you go old school, yeah, the philosophy is just leave them alone. They need to shut up, and we feed them and we give them a place to stay, and that's it.
Yeah.
But now it seems it's more and more trends. It's like, okay, my parents fucked me up in this way, so I'm definitely not going to fuck up my kids in this way. So you have like some guy who came out of the closet and his parents gave him a little bit of grief for it back in, like, say, 1998. And suddenly he's racing a gender queer person, boy who wears skirts to school. You know, it's kind of overcorrection.
But that's the thing, too. That's what always gets me. So you take this guy. Let's say dad did all this stuff. It fucked me up. But the guy is generally, most of the guys I see this for, they seem generally functional. But like, oh, my kids couldn't handle that. I think it was Lisek. This guy is a ghostwriter, and he said the same thing. Like, I want to give my kids everything I never had and like fix all the mistakes my dad made with me. But now I'm worried that he'll be too soft and won't appreciate it. What should I do? And I'm like, just raise him the same way your dad raised you. It seemed to work out for you. Oh, it's so black pilled. I'm like, you see that? Like, there's an inherent narcissism in that. You get that? Where it's, oh, I could handle this stuff, but anybody else is too weak. If they were raised the way I was raised, they wouldn't turn out nearly the same that I'm turning out now. And I'm like, how special do you think you are when your own kids are incapable of greatness the same way you are? You know?
Well, I do think that's kind of like a built-in, like that, like a healthy level of narcissism tends to not be a constant. It tends to be like you go from too much to too little.
Right. Which
So it's
makes
like
sense.
first guy you ever get into a traffic accident. Your
Okay.
first response is going to be usually going to be, "Oh shit, I fucked up. This is my fault. I screwed this up."
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get past that initial panic mode, you're like, "No, fuck that. I didn't fuck up. It was that bitch right there who rammed right into me."
Right.
And the truth is somewhere in between, usually.
Well, that's the thing. Which one do you believe? Like, here, I got to put this up so I don't forget it. I was thinking back to guys about, remember mystery, how it was always wait for the 3 indicators of interest, try and give 3 displays of higher value before you move on to the next phase. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that was the end of the first phase, right? I3 or A3, attraction 3. And a lot of guys were like, "Oh, well, what's an IOI? Is this an IOI? Is that an IOI?" And they describe some things. I'm like, why don't you just assume they're an IOI? Because a false positive is going to be better for you than a false negative. You know what I mean? Like you're talking by you assuming it's not an IOI and you assume it's not an IOI, you're actually talking yourself out of having sex. But that irrational confidence of like, no, no, that's an IOI, and no, that's an IOI. Yeah, you'll still fuck up, but at least then you're not giving away those times where you actually had to go ahead and just were too stupid to see it.
Well, I did that a lot when I was younger. I'd talk myself out of it, and then I just
Yeah.
started to think like, okay, let's just assume everything's in IOI, and let's just keep escalating until you get a no.
Yeah. Yeah, girls seem to be very, very good at not wanting to sleep with guys that they don't want to sleep with. I don't know. They do words. They say stop. They call you creepy. They walk away. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's like that T-shirt back in the day, that everyone thought was cool when they were 13, like kill them all and let God sort them out.
Oh yeah, that old classic.
Yeah, it's like try and fuck them all and let them figure out if they want to sleep with you or not.
Yep. They'll figure it out. As long as you don't have to start grinding up Plan B or roofies into their drinks, you're pretty much safe. Don't put
Well,
your
it kind of
hands on
reminds me of
somebody
like
when they say don't put your hands on me.
I saw this Twitter post the other day where some girl just put out like just had a one night stand with a guy who spat in my mouth and shoved a finger up my ass the first time we fucked. God, I love guys who are a bit forward.
Had sailors I've worked with. They say their first night they slept with their girl, or their first night that they picked up their girls that they're now wives to. One guy pissed her bed. He was so drunk. She passed out, so she couldn't sleep with him. And he fucking pissed the bed and woke up the next day. Another one shit his pants. I'm like, you guys have no idea some of the stuff guys have pulled on a first date and gotten called back. And you're worried about, oh, if I don't do the cube just right, is she gonna be gone? Like, you didn't piss her bed. And even that's not a fucking disqualifier. You'll be fine. As far as I know, I think those two are still married too. The guy I'm thinking about. I'd have to find out. I got to do my annual Facebook peruse. That's
No,
about
that's
as
why I
much of
think
it I
that
can take.
that's why I think that game we've talked about too, where you go out with your buddies and the goal isn't to get laid, it's to get shot down in the most spectacular way. It's just to train you like how much you can fuck up and not blow a set because it's surprisingly hard to do when you're
Yeah.
trying to do it.
Oh, absolutely. That's the problem. You have all that. You come across with confidence. Everything is funny. They can't take you seriously. You start realize. I think that's when that guy finally first realizes. Oh, that's what they mean by subtext and subcommunication. It doesn't matter what the fuck I said, as long as I said it with the right body language and tonality and the meaning behind it. And girls are observant about that. Holy shit! Turns
Well,
out
it's
men and
kind
women
of
aren't the same. Who'd
but
have
it's
thunk?
kind of like some of the most insane. I've seen some of the most insane. Like I've seen a guy just essentially walk up to a table of girls and start calling them out. Like, okay, you're obviously the mother hen. Okay, you're the attractive one that gets everyone else into trouble. You're the busybody. You're obviously the cock block.
Dude,
And
that's
funnily,
so
he ended
funny.
up sleeping with the cock block because she had to prove that she wasn't the cock block.
There is a nig of all nigs. You're the one that's you're the cock block. You know what I love too? It's not even a question, it's like an assertion. So like, and girls love to argue. And so he just basically gave them all the ammo they needed to argue with him all fucking night. Well done,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, but the best part was that they actually started agreeing with him, and that was the best part of it all.
Oh,
So yeah, because like was accurate, and because every girl group has kind of some of the same personalities in it,
oh, absolutely.
and every girl group is going to have a mother hen slash cock block.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you call her out on it, all the other girls will usually support you. It's the same thing with like the Sex and the City game back in the day when you'd like walk up to a group of girls and be like, "You're obviously the Samantha, you're obviously the Carrie," but you get those wrong on purpose just to get them to argue with each other.
Yeah. Oh my god, but if I get it wrong, they won't sleep with me. It's like girls don't give a shit. Dude, you see the new TikTok thing that's blowing up now? Some girl went to her boyfriend's dorm to surprise him, and like, but he was in a room with three girls just sitting there playing
Hmm.
Xbox or something, and it's like had thousands of people making their own takedowns of it, breakdowns. They're going frame by frame. Was one of those bitches doing something she shouldn't do? Should she leave him? Girls don't give a fuck about what's happening. They just want a reason to yap their gums and enjoy themselves and have some fun and have a little bit of drama. I can imagine that, just calling somebody Samantha probably started that shit up like you wouldn't believe. Although
Yeah, I
now I'm
think
thinking of,
most girls are. I think most guys like to think that most girls live lives off Instagram, and
mhm.
especially Dan Bilzerian's Instagram, but that's not reality. Most of them are bored as fuck.
Yeah, most of them are the ones scrolling through Dan Bilzerian's Instagram. Which can I stand for Danny here for a bit? Everybody was giving him shit saying that wasn't his money and whatever, he was taking it out of like the corporate coffers and that. I'm like, if anything, that made me actually believe he was living a fucking legit rich lifestyle. I'm like, every guy who has money that I've ever met, if he can charge something to corporate, he absolutely will. It's like, why wouldn't you? I'm gonna have a cocaine fueled party with a bunch of chicks, and I'm putting that on the corporate card, and you guys can't stop me. I'm like, that's what you
Yeah,
guys
but
want.
everyone kind of does that though. It's like every
That's
guy
what I
who
mean.
has the wherewithal to have like a corporate account, and if you can, you'll put private shit on there as much as you can, up to the point where you will get caught for it. Because
Yeah.
like a lawyer I used to interact a lot with used to have this statement like never whenever you move in like gray areas of the law, you have a tendency to end up doing something criminal.
Oh, I was waiting for there was
What's
like a follow through on that. Like, no,
no,
it's just no.
I got distracted with like Jordan Peele's daughter is a train wreck, and I was like, who's? I tried to remember who the hell that was.
Oh, the Michaela. Yeah, that one photo with Tate, that's her version of like lumber cucking is driving my girl to a Tinder date story. Never living that down. I don't get why people care.
No,
Like, dude, whatever you
I
think
think a
of
lot of guys
Peterson.
wanted to sleep with her, to be honest, because they thought Jordan raised her, Daddy raised her. She has to be a high quality woman if she was raised by the guy who wrote 10 Rules for Life.
Yeah, the divorced mother, the single mom, the ones they shit on all the day. But yeah, but it's a good single mom. She goes to the right church. For me, I'm just impressed. Like I said, say what you want about Jordan. I like his clinical psychology stuff. Some people like his Bible study stuff. Other people like his like I don't know, whatever he does now. I'm not even sure how to describe it. But then his daughter was like, "Hey, Dad got sick. I need to steal as much of this clout as I can before it's too late." And now she's a big deal. Rolo showed me that stupid podcast she did with the Weinstein guy, and I was like, she just sat there. She didn't know how to say anything. She was like Ed McMahon having the Tonight Show, where all she has to do is like agree with what's his face that hosts it. Fuck, why can I remember the host of the Tonight Show, but I remember Ed fucking McMahon. Johnny
The
Carson.
Tonight Show? Ah, Carson, yeah.
Yeah, it was Carson and then Ed McMahon. He was like the co-host, and his whole job was just to like set up punchlines for Carson. And I was like, that's what Michaela Peterson was doing to the international dork web. And I'm like, why do people care about this? This is like, it's not even entertaining. It's just kind of like, eh.
Funniest thing
But
to me,
whatever.
though, is like When I first came back, there was a lot of talk about the female rationalization hamster,
Uh-huh.
which I think Illimitable Man described the best when he said, like, if a girl is into you, she'll rationalize 6 inches onto your cock. But
Motherfucker
what's
stole our stuff.
but what's kind of dawned on me is like the male rationalization hamster is just as fucking strong. When
Yeah.
after you've seen all the crazy shit guys have rationalized doing, from tanning their assholes to moving out into the countryside to marrying, single moms they met on Tinder despite having being red pilled men. It's like the biggest challenge you can find is getting a single mom who's been railed on cam and then turning her into a good Christian wife. That's the real challenge.
I'm sure it is a challenge. You know, this is a challenge: starving yourself for 30 days and not dying. I was just thinking though, there is the difference. Like the female hamster is about rationalization, and the male hamster is about hope. I'm starting to think at least rationalization already did what it wanted to do, and now it just has to be okay with it. The guy hamster is like this covert contract where here's hoping, man. If I just believe this hard enough, shit'll happen. Meanwhile, they're selling The Secret to women, and guys are reading Mark Manson's How Not to Give a Fuck. I'm just saying. Sounds like it's the exact opposite. The Not Give a Fuck is the female audience, and The Secret is the male audience. Not sure what to make of that.
No, I
Ryan,
think
who's
it's
sitting on the Queen's
mostly
empty throne? What the hell are you talking about?
yeah.
Is the Queen? Did the Queen die?
Don't know.
Um, Officially, the Queen's empty throne would be Prince Charles. He's next up, unless he lost it because of that divorcee he married. In which case, it's Harry or something. No, not Harry. Who's the one that's not with the American broad?
Of the two princes,
Yeah, the one
Harry
that
is
married
with
the hot
Meghan
chick.
Markle.
Yeah, not the
Harry's
Meghan
with
one, the other one.
Oh yeah, Duchess Kate. It's Prince William.
William. Yeah, Willie gets on the throne if the Queen's gone.
I think they're gonna try and skip over Charles. I think that's like the payback for Camilla.
I was just thinking, isn't that like the British royalty thing where like every generation there has to be one that marries a divorced American girl? Like wasn't that the whole King George, the whole reason he became king was
Yeah, it
because his
was.
brother who was going to get it decided to marry like an old divorced American chick?
Yep, same thing.
How funny is that? Revolutionary War did less damage to the monarchy than fucking single divorced chicks from the States, historically speaking.
Yeah.
At least the
That's
revolution
it.
sorted out in 1.5 wars.
Well, I think it just goes to show you like the whole thing with if you give a get a g- I'm still kind of curious about the Harry thing because he does not look happy, not one bit.
Yeah, oh, I know he's not happy. Dude, I've seen those guys. I've had a friend of mine who was like that. Um, yeah, he was dating a girl, and she was always, every time he wanted to come out and hang with us, she would get sick, or she would have a headache, or she would really need him there for some emergency or whatever. And then he ended up just being alienated from all of us. And he was never happy, but he was always doing the right thing. So he was like a good man. And
Yeah,
it's
I
just
see
the
what you
same thing
mean.
I get from those.
I'm just not sure it's gonna be interesting to see how that turns out though. William suddenly gets a heart attack and now Harry and Meghan are king and queen.
I
Then
don't think
two
it's
two
going to.
weeks later 2 weeks later the Brits get rid of the monarchy.
Oh, you can't get rid of that. You need those spokespersons. They just cost. They
Yeah, but
don't cost much. It's like the equivalent of what's the American equivalent of that? It's like The Rock. They have to pay him so many millions of dollars for films, but he's kind of like the national spokesperson for the country.
I do kind of think that the monarchy is probably going to disappear in a couple of hundred years, though.
I don't know. Well, like the only ones really left, isn't it? Just like Britain and one of those Norwegian countries are the only ones that still have it, right?
A couple of the Nordics, the Brits, let's see, the Germans got rid of it, kinda. They still have a lot of nobility in Germany.
Oh,
France
fair
got rid
enough.
of it. Spain still has it. Portugal, I think, got rid of it. Greece, I know, got rid of it. So you have a few left, but it's not like it's as common as it used to be.
I don't know. I just think the symbology part of it's probably going to still last. Like it'll definitely change. It won't be the same as it is now. They probably won't even have like some of the rituals in place, but I think people like that consistency status quo thing more than they like actually like whether the monarchy is necessary or not.
Well, speaking of that, I do think that the funniest like retrospective is going to be that okay, so you guys could have gotten off fossil fuels in the 60s and 70s and 80s if it wasn't for like one Soviet Union and one American company fucking up a little bit with nuclear power.
He went there. He
And
went there.
then you have a couple of Japanese people who don't understand that if the top of your risk scale for calculating what a nuclear power plant needs to handle in an earthquake should be a little bit over what's been the highest registered, not exactly what the highest has been.
That's not. Is that actually what they do? Because I remember it was like for dams and stuff. It's always they have to weather like the storm of the century, like whatever has been the worst in 100 years. But tell me they're not just matching it for nuclear power plants.
Well, if I can't speak for it, it's been years, but if I remember correctly, like the highest rated earthquake in Fukushima had been like 6.6,
Right?
and the plant was rated to handle 6.6.
Oh. Oh
Because
dear.
there have been like 4 or 5 earthquakes there that was about 6.6.
Right.
So they figured, okay, they're never going to get higher than that. Fuck it, we're only dealing with runaway fusion here.
And what did it end up getting to? It was like 8 or something like that, wasn't it?
That's 7.1, I think.
7.1. Look at that. And not even like I know it's supposed to be a logarithmic change, but that just seems lazy. Although I guess Japan has a lot of issues with like trusting your elders and then the elders kind of making these lazy decisions and people just not saying anything about it.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing I kind of been thinking a lot about with like I can imagine if you go back, let's say between like year zero and up until about 1700,
Right?
things didn't change much for your average person. Well, you did the same thing with farming, you did the same thing with your society, and so on. There weren't a lot of technological events that changed. Then you got the steam engine, you got the Industrial Revolution, and now things are changing very quickly. And when you're living in a society that's not prone to like quick change, it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense to trust your elders because they've seen everything that can be thrown at them. But now it doesn't make as much sense because the world post 2008 is radically different from just 2000 fucking 2.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, and the change is happening faster. There was actually a great, I was a historian talking about that, how the idea of like romanticizing the past is a fairly modern concept because until like the 18 or like until the industrial revolution happened, the past was pretty much the same as now. So nobody's in the 1400s going, you know what? I romanticize and write stories about the 1100s. Like nobody did that because it was exactly the same. It's interesting.
Yeah, and it makes sense to trust your elders in that context, but it doesn't make sense to have society rigged to have the people who are the slowest to adopt new ideas and new things run this government when things are under rapid change.
Yeah, well,
The
and
same thing
that's
you
the
say
thing.
with
It's is it going to be so bad that we get like a zeroing out? Because if it hobbles along, barely able to function, we're probably going to stick with that for a long time. It'd have to have some like real. I don't know what the national equivalent of getting zeroed out is, but that kind of like fight or flight response until we finally change these models.
I'm actually curious. I do think what we're going to see now is the short term pain.
Oh, the saving the West bullshit. Short term pain.
No, no, not that, but just on the basis that like, I was in a meeting with some guys who are big into energy,
Hmm.
and they're kind of pointing out that, okay, they're not concerned for energy with like 10, 15 years ahead, but they're really fucking concerned for the next 6 to 12 months.
Why is that a Russia thing or?
No, the reasoning being that, okay, we're trying to get off fossil fuels and we're going to have to go to more renewables to hit every climate goal.
Hmm.
And regardless, we're going to have to start adjusting from a primarily fossil based energy economy to something that includes a different energy mix. The problem is lead time on building nuclear power plants that we kind of need to close the gap between fossil and renewables is I think it's 5 to 10 years on building a new nuclear power plant and getting it
Oh
running.
yeah, they're huge, huge
So
investments, huge capital upfront expenses.
yeah, which is why it makes sense to be one of the few things that government actually should operate because A, they're very capital intensive, they have long lead times, and they get really good benefits from scale. So it makes sense to have like a government monopoly operate all the nuclear power plants. Plus,
Hmm.
you don't want private sector corner cutting to make profits in a fucking nuclear power plant.
Oh, we're going there. No,
So
I agree.
well, I'll take government incompetence, but predictability over corporate greed and corner
Oh, but no, I
cutting
agree.
when
Like
we're
you cut
talking things
corners
that can
on the thing.
explode.
That's how you get the
Like,
Fukushima. We could build it for 7.1, but 6.6 Richter scale is just fine. And by the time that comes to pass, that guy's already moved on to be a CEO of a new company because of all these great decisions he made. Yeah, and then nobody's head rolls, nobody's accountable to it. But I agree, a government, nuclear especially. It'd be nice too if we finally started recycling nuclear material as opposed to just leaving them underground. So that, and that's, isn't that the thing too? The reason we did that was because we wanted to make nuclear weapons. So we can't just recycle nuclear fission material because then we can't use that towards making weapons. But that
I'm
just
not
means we have a
familiar
whole
with
bunch of
that.
leftover power that we could easily refine.
But my take on it is we need to start getting more nuclear into it just to bridge the gap with fossil because most car manufacturers now are not going to produce fossil cars after 2025.
Is that like a legal mandate, or is that just a good
No,
guess
but
or good?
like it was kind of insane because like at least in Europe we've been seeing this where governments are saying like, yeah, we want to make sure the private sector can change, so we're going to let you produce fossil cars until 2035, and the corporation like 2035? Are you nuts? We're not going to produce shit after 2025.
But then that doesn't really solve the problem either. That just shifts fossil fuel consumption from the individual level to like a power plant level,
Yeah, and
which I guess
then you're
makes
going
sense
to
if you're
have
doing nuclear. But then what is environmentalists are just like, no, if it's not a wind farm or a solar plant. Meanwhile, we just don't have enough land mass to be able to fill that stuff everywhere. We don't have enough battery capacity. And if we did, we have a whole new problem now. Instead of carbon in the air, our problem is like lithium in the groundwater.
well, I think you can get around most of that with because I think if you put as much into nuclear the last 50 years as we've done with oil, we
Mm-hmm.
would have massive it would safety would improve massively.
Oh, I agree.
Like and the only thing like the Soviets built that's worth anything is the AK-47, and that's a weapon that's essentially broken when you get it, so it can't break anymore. I mean, for if you've ever shot an AK, the entire fucking weapon shakes.
Oh, really? I've
Like
heard that they're like
nothing.
indestructible, but yeah.
Well, like I was with a buddy of mine who's big into like what do they call it again? Action shooting.
Mm-hmm.
So like they do Trigun, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And he just kind of ran me through a bunch of the weapons they had there. So I shot a competition pistol, and that thing is so finely tuned that if you get like a human hair between the slide and the gun, it will jam.
I've heard, but they're like ultra accurate. The recoil is just perfect and it's balanced well. But yeah, they can't take any
Yeah, and then
damage
you have the
whatsoever.
AK-47 on the other hand, a weapon you could fill with water, let it freeze overnight, dump it in mud, and let a tank drive over the motherfucker, and the thing still shoots.
Wait, didn't Mythbusters do that? I can't remember. Somebody actually did like a whole bunch of tests like that. Like,
Yeah,
what
I
kind of
know.
crap could we put the thing through? Oh, I never watched either, but I'm assuming it still worked. Good enough. All right, I guess we should roll this up
Yeah.
soon, though. It's going to be about breakfast time.
Yeah, the
I don't know if
point
you're
was
probably
getting
not
up
going to
with
be able to
the
make it in. I know you're usually busy on these days here, but Rule Zero is going to
yeah,
be, I think it's John's channel, and they're talking about red pill within a relationship, which I'll be
hey,
curious to
they're
see.
stealing your brand. Cool.
Hey, I don't mind, whatever. At least it's a topic I'll know what I'm talking about, and I can hear them talk, and I try not to argue.
Hmm.
Actually, no, it's good. That's the one thing I do like about not having like new guys. Like, no offense to Myron, think what you like about him, but I just remember that time he was telling us about dating and bitches and relationships, and he started rambling to you and me, and we're both kind of like, "What the fuck are you talking about, dude? yo, 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 yo. I'm like, no, 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 no. At least we don't have that shit.
Yeah, that's useful.
Yeah. Oh, well, whatever. Anyways, Gendernomics. Somebody asked earlier on, is Gendernomics still around? Yes, it's still around. I put them in the descriptions here. If you guys haven't read it, Gendernomics 1 is great. Gendernomics 2 is kind of like the roadmap to go from 0 to 1. Guy who can't get laid to guy who can get laid and be a fucking normal functioning person. Super good read. I don't have anything else to follow up this with. Oh, Digital Ryan. That's right. The channel's got it's got the subscriber membership shit there. I'll put a link. Oh, a sec. If you guys don't know, we're doing this is my I'm leaving the manosphere.com or leaving the manosphere shit. It's still red pill, but we're kind of casual about it. Playing Minecraft or whatever. We have a Minecraft SMP up. You subscribe onto the thing, just some nominal fee to cover the server costs there, and we can get in there, have some fun. Guys are loving it. If you don't know what the hell these T-Rexes are for in the chat, well, that's how you find out. And then Dante's got the Discord server, so you can chit-chat with guys, swap some notes privately. It's pretty good. Again, it's red pill, but it's not taking it so seriously that we have to smoke cigars in a war room to feel like men. And that'll be the thing. And Carl, if you ever want to get on there, there's always an invite ready for you. Just let me know.
Yeah, but then I have to play Minecraft.
Yeah, I know. Dude, unironically, it's fucking fun, man. I don't get it. It's the perfect mix. Like, it's something I can do that you can half pay attention to and still talk to guys about sexual strategy, and you can pick it up and you put it down. It's just perfect.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Anyways, I got nothing else. Do you got... Is it game mode server? I don't know what that means. It's just survival, dude. All right, you got anything else, or should I end this?
No, just end it.
All right, guys. We'll see you in half an hour on